Will democracy survive in the next couple of years?
And essentially, we are the same.
And there are so many needs that Minnesota has.
What people are saying they need right now.
Access to democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, the Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center in Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Firefly Credit Union, with locations throughout the Twin Cities, has proudly served Minnesotans since 1925. Firefly guides its members forward by delivering customized financial solutions to improve their lives in all aspects of banking. Firefly Credit Union, they light the way with life illuminated. Edina Eye, Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years. Now in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, Edina Eye offers comprehensive services but dedicated specialists committed to excellence with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Welcome to Access to Democracy. I'm Bill Raker, guest host for this edition of the program. We're excited to welcome back as a guest, second time, Erin Parrish, who is the Associate State Director for Advocacy and Outreach for AARP Minnesota. Welcome, Erin.
Hi, Bill. Thanks so much for inviting me back.
So today we're going to talk about the 2020 election issues and voter engagement, quite a timely topic for the season that we're in right now, just a few weeks away from the general election. So I was wondering, Erin, why AARP is interested in election, in the election process. How does that fit into the mission?
Yeah, well, AARP has a proud 34-year history of nonpartisan engagement. What we do is provide voters with information on where candidates stand on issues important to our members and their families so that they can make their own decisions on election day. AARP's mission is to strengthen communities and advocate for what matters most to families with a focus on health security, financial security, and personal fulfillment. And we do that by leading positive social change and delivering value to our members through advocacy, service, and information. And that includes fighting to protect 50+ voters and help make their voice heard on the issues that matter most to them, like Social Security and Medicare, lowering prescription drugs, and ensuring that they can vote safely from home or in person. So this is a natural fit with our mission, and it's something that our members tell us they want. And as you said, it's incredibly critical this year with so many changes to the voting procedure.
I know you've had several years of experience working with nonprofits and working with volunteers. And in this environment today, what kinds of new challenges are you experiencing that perhaps are brand new to you, you've never seen before in running up to an election?
Well, one of the biggest challenges for me personally is, as an organizer, not being able to meet people face to face and sit down over a cup of coffee, or take a team of volunteer advocates to a debate in a town hall to get our presence right in front of the candidates. That's the biggest challenge. Everything's virtual now. Doesn't mean we still can't do our work and we still can't have an impact, but that has been one of the biggest challenges. And certainly there are a number of things that are significantly different this year with actually voting. So getting that information out and ensuring we're reaching the right people, that can be a challenge virtually as well, especially when there might not be access to broadband in certain areas of our state.
Sure. So can you tell us about some of the initiatives that AARP has underway that you hope to get them to play out successfully for voter engagement and an understanding of the issues for voters?
Yeah. Well, because things are virtual now, a centerpiece of our voter engagement work is focusing on providing customized state-by-state information about all of the voting options this fall. So AARP's print publications will produce separate editions for each state, accompanied by direct mail, digital communications, and paid media. Here in Minnesota, we're also working closely with local election officials to get the word out to AARP members and voters. So for instance, this week we hosted a telephone town hall with Secretary Steve Simon, which was joined by roughly 10,000 AARP members who were able to directly engage with the Secretary and ask questions about voting changes this year. We are also, much like our national office, utilizing phones and email to really get that message out. On the candidate interaction side of things, we still want to make sure that candidates are hearing from our members about those issues that are most important. So we're sponsoring virtual debates, and we'll be sponsoring a couple of issue forums that are coming up, and our volunteers will be attending virtual town halls with questions for the candidates.
Well, that's great. How will folks be aware of these town halls and these events where they can listen in and maybe even participate? How do they learn about those?
Well, I would say the easiest way to learn about town halls that are happening is to sign up for email from the candidates in your district. So that you're able to get that information directly from them when they are hosting something. They need to have your phone number, they need to have your email address in order to send you information about when they're hosting an event. AARP will do our best of the ones that we're sponsoring and the ones we're aware of, to get that information out to our members, either by email or by phone, so that they're able to participate. And we are also pressing the candidates. We'll be arming members and volunteers with specific questions to ask the candidates about Social Security and prescription drug costs, among other things.
That's great. I wish you well and success in all of those, because I think they will deliver important messages and information that an informed voter needs to know. And speaking about an informed voter, what are some of the challenges that the voters are facing, maybe nationally, but especially here in Minnesota?
Yeah, I think, one of the challenges right now is knowing how you can vote safely and having information about many of the changes that have occurred due to the pandemic and might change in the coming months. In Minnesota, voters can choose to vote early in person, by no excuse absentee ballot, in person at the polling place, or if someone's eligible, they can have an agent pick up their ballot for them and deliver it to the polling place. But some voters will be voting absentee for the first time. The statewide primary in August, 60% of voters voted absentee, and that's triple what they've seen in previous years. Many voters will be going to a new polling place because they had to shift some polling places away from polling places that were in long-term care facilities or community centers that couldn't accommodate social distancing. So some of the key challenges is ensuring that people have the right information and that they're aware that they might have to seek out new information because they need to be prepared to handle those changes in the polling place or by absentee.
Well, that's a whole set of challenges to deal with. I hope that it doesn't reduce the number of people that decide to vote, whether absentee or in person or do early balloting. I don't know, do any of the resources that you work with have any projections about what the voter turnout is expected to be here in Minnesota, because of the COVID-19 pandemic and other issues?
I don't know. I haven't seen exactly any projections, but on Wednesday on the telephone town hall that we had hosted with Secretary Simon, he did indicate that about 800,000 Minnesotans have already requested an absentee ballot.
800,000?
800,000.
Wow.
That's a big number.
It is.
But it is not, I can't remember the exact number of eligible voters in Minnesota, but it is a fraction of eligible voters. But that's this far in advance of the November election. I do think there is significant interest. It's a presidential election, but there's a lot of things going on right now that have people concerned. So I do expect that, people won't stay away from the polls and they won't stay away from voting. We've heard from members that they're going to do whatever they can to make sure that they can vote. And that means being informed and having a plan.
Sure. And for those of our audience who plan on, voting by absentee ballot, what's the deadline date by when those ballots need to be received to make sure that they're being counted?
Sure. Those are some of the changes that have occurred because there is going to be an increase in absentee balloting, so they want to ensure that everyone's ballot gets in. So early in-person voting starts September 18th, very soon. And that is when they will start mailing out absentee ballots as well. You can request an absentee ballot at any time. You could go right now and request an absentee ballot, and then they will start mailing those out. We've seen some delays in postal service, and we've heard about those. So the advice is to, if you are decided and no one is going to change your opinion, get your ballot back as soon as possible. But absentee ballots this year, due to a court decision a recent ruling on that, which AARP did file an amicus brief in support of, a recent court ruling allows more time for ballots to be counted. So if you're voting absentee, as long as your ballot is postmarked on or before Election Day, it will be counted as long as it's received within 7 days after the election. Still, I think it's important to get that ballot back as soon as possible. And if you happen to forget, or you just can't make up your mind of who you want to vote for, you can take that absentee ballot down to the election office, your local election office, and turn that in. One other change that I do want to note that I think people should be aware of for absentee voting is that due to that same court case, witness signatures are not required for the November election. So if you voted absentee, you'll know you typically have to have a witness sign the envelope that your ballot goes into. The ruling waives that state requirement. AARP advocated for this change because we feel really strongly that voters shouldn't have to choose between risking their health and casting a ballot.
Precisely. Were there other changes to the voting rules that are worth mentioning, that might impact the process or people's ability to vote?
Sure. I think, one in the legislative session earlier this year, there were a few changes that allow local election officials to move polling places that might be in might be in buildings or venues that have a population of vulnerable people. So some individuals might be going to a new polling place. That could be a change that was legislated. The other thing is that some precincts have actually switched to all mail-in balloting. These are typically in rural areas under state law. This has been an option for townships and cities with fewer than 400 registered voters outside of the metro area. So that could be a change for voters. And then I think there will be some changes inside the polling place that people should be aware of. Masks are required in polling places, and poll workers are working very hard to sanitize voting booths and pens, and social distancing will be observed as well. Those are some of the key changes that I think people will experience.
Well, with that list and the other issues at play, this is an election year like no other that we're going to experience. Now, Erin, in your work and AARP in general often partner with other organizations for projects and initiatives. Are there partnerships that are at play here with you and AARP in these election issues and the voter engagement efforts?
Certainly. I had mentioned earlier that we're working with local election officials to get the information out to as many voters as possible. So we do, work with the Secretary of State's office to make sure we're getting the right information out, but to also, get him on a telephone town hall so that he's able to talk directly to our members. But we're also working with a couple of community centers, the Sabathani Community Center in Minneapolis and the Hallie Q. Brown Community Center in St. Paul, to get voter information to individuals who are picking up food items from the food shelves. So we just shipped off 300 copies of voting information. This is the second time to Sabathani, so that everyone who's going there will get the right information that they need.
That's a big undertaking. A lot of times you work with volunteers, AARP volunteers. How are the AARP volunteers participating? What's their engagement, and what role are they playing in helping with your efforts of voter engagement and getting the word out?
Yeah, well, volunteers have always been critical to the work that AARP does, and I'd say now during the pandemic, with everything shifted to virtual, they're even more critical in getting the word out. Things look differently for how we engage with members of the community this election year. So volunteers are helping us to educate through their personal and professional networks on safe voting options. Those who use social media are helping spreading the word that way. We'll have volunteer phone banks set up where they, from the comfort of their own home, can call individuals and remind them to vote and answer questions that people might have, and at least direct them to the right resource for information. They're also writing letters to the editor to ensure that people have correct information, not just on voting, but also on the issues. Many of them will be joining in virtual debates and town halls to ask questions of the candidates, and some are even going to be hosting virtual debate watch parties with their friends over Facebook, and get that conversation going and that good civic engagement and discussion. And the last thing is, when the election is over and the final results are over, or the final results are in, the volunteers will be reaching out to the winners to discuss AARP's policy priorities.
Sure. Now that we're talking about the volunteers, how many AARP volunteers are there here in Minnesota that the state organization works with?
Here in Minnesota, we have just over 300 volunteers statewide. And they're not all of them do voter engagement. They're doing a variety of things. Some of them are fraud fighters. Many of them are advocacy volunteers, and others are out in their community doing good work. We have people teaching driver safety and doing tutoring for kids K through 3 or K through 3rd grade, and volunteers doing tax aid. So they are a hard-working, dedicated bunch. It's a pleasure to work with them.
Well, I guess we can never have too many volunteers. Would you like to make a call for volunteers right now who may be watching our program and want to get interested?
Always. Anyone is invited to join AARP's volunteer team. You know, our volunteers make a big difference by educating both community members and decision makers about those important issues that affect all of us as we age. And I will say, no prior experience or expertise in policy or legislative advocacy is needed to be part of the team. We provide training and resources so that our volunteers can go out and do the work. And, you know, I mentioned things look differently right now because things are virtual. But when we're all able to be together face to face again, we will be roaming the halls of the state capitol, tracking down legislators and talking to them about the issues that are important to older Minnesotans.
Well, we'll have contact information available in the program as it goes out, which will be your name and phone number and an email address, as well as the phone number of the AARP office here in Minnesota. So we'll make sure that the information is out there if people would like to call you and get involved. Speaking of issues, what do you know at this point about some of the issues that AARP is going to be advocating or will continue to be advocating for following this election?
Yeah, certainly, you know, all things COVID right now and ensuring that older adults are protected during the COVID pandemic, you know, and when we reach a point, you know, that COVID is not a threat anymore, then we will be looking at the impact that older adults are facing post-COVID. We will be looking at changes to nursing homes and assisted living facilities and consumer protections there, but we're also expecting to continue our work to lower the cost of prescription drugs, protect Social Security and Medicare, and ensure that our communities are livable places for people of all ages.
You know, it's interesting to note, Erin, that those initiatives that AARP is working on have or can achieve results or have an impact that is applicable to all kinds of consumers, not just to AARP membership.
Yes.
You know, so it's really issues for consumers in general, perhaps, not just people 50 and older that typically make up the membership for AARP.
Yeah, you're correct. These issues impact people of all ages. And if you're not 50 and you're not an older person yet, the things that we're working on will eventually impact you. They impact your loved ones. And that's why I say anyone can get involved. Anyone can join our team. But yes, these are incredibly important issues and very intergenerational.
And so the more involved people are, the more impact we can have, you know, and hopefully better outcomes. So I think it's important for the organization AARP to have volunteers who, you know, have the interest and the desire to work on behalf of consumers.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, incredibly important.
So, you know, we've covered quite a bit of ground here in the program today, Erin. Well, of course, there's a lot to talk about with respect to these elections, but I think you've done a great job of giving us not just an overview, but some of the details about how the election process is going to work, and many of the things that are different this year that we've never experienced before. So that's very helpful for our viewers to understand. Are there any other pieces of information or thoughts that you would like to pass along to our viewers that would be related to election issues or voter engagement?
Yeah, for all things voting, and to make sure that you know the rules and the requirements, people should be in contact with the Secretary of State's office. They have a fantastic website that has all the information that you need to know. And it's a very simple one to remember. It's mnvotes.org. And you can go there, you can get an absentee ballot application, you can get a registration application. If you do vote absentee, you can track your ballot on their website. So you can see when it's sent to you, and when you fill it out and you mail it back, you can check in to make sure it was indeed received and counted. It's a great resource, but you can also contact your local election office in the county where you live with questions, and also to learn and make sure that your ballot was received. And I think that is an incredibly important peace of mind for a lot of people, is to know that, yes, their ballot was indeed counted if they're voting absentee.
Well, certainly it is for this voting season anyway. You anticipated the next question, which was if a viewer has some questions or some concerns, what resources are available to them? Where can they go to get answers, to get information? And you mentioned a couple of sources. I think they're worth repeating, about where one could go to get information.
Sure. The Minnesota Secretary of State's website, their voting website is mnvotes.org, and that's votes with an S. And also your county election office. I don't know all those websites. There's 87 of them, but certainly reach out to your county election office. And AARP, we also do have a website set up with similar information, certainly not the wealth that our local elections officials will have, but it is aarp.org/MN election 2020.
Very good, very good. So again, our guest today on the program has been Erin Parrish, the Associate State Director for Advocacy and Outreach for AARP Minnesota. Erin, thank you very much for your contributions. A great job on the topic of 2020 election issues and voter engagement. So thanks very much. It's delightful to have you as a guest, and stay well.
You as well. Thanks for the opportunity.